So meditation and other practices of both the mind and the body are an ongoing inquiry of mine, curiosity. But meditation, sitting meditation in particular, I have been exploring for quite a long time. And it's, you're working with something invisible. So it's just, what works, what doesn't work. How do you know if what you're doing is working or not? It's slippery territory. And I'm not going to try to answer any of those questions here or definitively, maybe ever. I'm just going to share a little bit of what I am currently exploring. And one thing that I've definitely struggled with in general as a human being, but also in the realm of meditation, is this idea of, I've had this idea of, I need to pick one discipline. If I'm truly disciplined, then I will choose one philosophy, Taoism, Buddhism, Christianity, whatever, and I will choose one technique and I will stick with that and follow it. And I struggle with this because I can see that there's a lot of validity in aspects of this idea, and a lot of people that I respect and admire have shared that ultimately they have one, they stay with the Christian tradition, that's kind of their root thing, or the Taoist tradition is kind of the Taoist philosophy is their root thing and through thread. I have preferences certainly and things that I lean towards. I would say Taoism and the Western esoteric tradition are big ones for me, but more recently in my life, when I returned back to the East Coast where I was born, where I'm originally from, and I had gone away and studied a lot of Eastern philosophy and traditions and whatnot, and I really definitively wanted to find my way back into something that represented blood roots for me. And I am largely of European origin, and I was raised Catholic. And so I became curious about what, particularly the field of Western esotericism has really held up a finger and said, we do have, in the West, in Europe, we have a very rich esoteric and mystical tradition. It's just that the powers that were excluded that from the dominant paradigm. So the Bible was edited, everything is always edited according to who is in control and power in that way, who publishes the books, so there is a very strong tradition of mystical practices and esoteric traditions in the West, and it has now become a growing field of academic study. I have learned that I am definitely not an academic. I am very interested in the applicable practice, which I think is a attribute of an artist, if you have to qualify things like that. I really need to do things physically in order to know them. I need to practice them. So all of that said, when I came back to the East Coast, I was exploring Christian mysticism, Western esotericism, and I came upon, now I'm going to forget, Thomas in like the 70s or the 60s or the 70s was noticing that all the young people were just kind of like traipsing past his monastery on their way to the Buddhist retreat center. So he started to investigate, what is it? What is the Christian tradition lost? What are these young people looking for that they don't think they can find in the church, in Christianity? So he developed centering prayer. Centering prayer is what I wanted to kind of talk a bit about today, just as something that you might try. Yeah, it's a very simple technique, but there are a lot of books on it to feed your curious intellect and the need to have some understanding of a depth and a legitimacy of a tradition. But essentially with centering prayer, you sit as you would in meditation, whatever's comfortable for you, a chair, a cushion. Usually raise your hips up a little bit so that you can sit comfortably without straining your body. And you choose a word, ideally one syllable, but I don't think there's any need to make it one syllable. And this word represents the divine, the spark of the divine within you. And you use this as your point of meditation. And I think what's recommended is 2 20-minute sessions, one in the morning and one in the evening. And my little thing that I found to work for me is do it before or after something that you always do. So I meditate in the morning before breakfast, and usually I have to do it before my short movement practice that I do in the mornings. Otherwise, once I get moving, it's all over. And I've just learned this from experience. And in the evening, before dinner is a good way to do it if you tend to skip things. I basically am really depend upon my meditation practice to let my mind settle down, so I do it before bed. Another thing that's worked for me is that instead of setting myself a particular period of time, because again, you have to know yourself. I'm somebody that can or has a habit in the past of disciplining myself, which means soldiering through. Be looking at the clock and kind of like, all right, I'm gonna stay until I can check that hour off the box. I don't think that's helpful. I think if you're checking things off your left brain box, that's a sign that you're not actually present in what you're doing. So I found that something that works better is, as I've heard it called, a Piscean, like Pisces, flavor of meditation, where you just sit and you don't use a timer, or you just note the time when you start, if you can do this without getting too competitive with yourself, and then note the time when you end, and just so you have an idea. Oh, today, I spaced out and I sat there for like 40 minutes, but I wasn't present. I was kind of spaced out in some fantasy. Oh, today I spent 2 minutes, but I was really coming back to my word. The basic instructions for centering prayer is that you sit for this 20-minute period of time and you rest your mind on this word. If you've done other forms of meditation, letting go of thoughts, you just are returning to this word. So my current word is joy, and you just bring your mind back to it, and you bring your mind back to it. And there is an app which I would recommend. It's a really beautifully simple app that involves, there's a gong or whatever sound you choose to begin your meditation, and then you can choose the amount of time you want to sit. And so it's called Centering Prayer. This app is characterized, it has a circle with 4 colors, red, green, blue, and orange, and it just says Centering Prayer. The instructions that they offer you on this app is that you choose your word, the symbol of your intention to consent to God's presence and action within. So I like that. You sit with your eyes closed in this type of meditation. So you just return to the words, and they have this specific part of the instruction that says you return to the word and you let go of thoughts, but thoughts include body sensation, feeling, images, and reflections. So I was thinking about this morning and thought, I've been exploring this for a few years now, and I had studied forms of meditation that specifically the focus was on body sensations and exploring how the energy was moving. And parts work is the same thing. You're kind of tracking the energy moving. And so this is fascinating, a fascinating mystery to consider, that your mind can actually rest on a word and let go of everything else. It just kind of occurred to me today as something amazing. It's hard, it's elusive. So, again, this is just playing with ways of working with the mind. And to come back full circle about sticking with a discipline or sticking with a tradition, I think, again, you always have to temper these recommendations with your unfolding self-understanding. So what I've come to understand about myself, which I really fought for a lot of years, as I explained, telling myself I should choose one thing and stay with it, is that I'm more cyclical, and I'm very particular about what I choose to engage with. But if something really captures my attention, then I give myself the time to explore it, to study it, to practice it. And I, especially in the beginning, often journal about the results, my experience. Okay, I'm going to work with this for 1 month. That's a good cycle, or 6 weeks.